With the Montreal Canadiens losing the NHL Draft Lottery, they will sadly not have the chance to select Macklin Celebrini, but at 5th overall, the Habs still have a ton of options and different players they could go for. But today we're going to be going through all the prospects the Montreal Canadiens could be targeting in that 5th overall spot, who they could end up drafting, as well as the top 5 prospects that I think they should draft at that spot. So make sure you watch till the end for all the prospect analysis and all of the hockey talk. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new for all the draft content as we lead up to the draft in just a month. It's almost here, folks, and you won't want to miss a thing. Plus, if you guys hit the like button a bunch in this video, we could do a lot more of these videos on the top 10, going over the Blackhawks pick, the Ducks, the Blue Jackets, and a lot more. So if you guys hit that like button, maybe we'll make this a series. Who knows? Now, before we get to the 5th overall pick discussion with the Habs, I first want to share you guys my sleeper fantasy picks for today. Also, if you guys don't know, it's open wide in Canada. Some of you guys have told me in the past that you haven't been able to download it because it's not available. Well, it's available in every province except Ontario right now. So for all the Habs fans watching, you guys can join on Sleeper Fantasy and make your own NHL picks daily through the playoffs. And today I got 4 different picks. I'm predicting an Avs comeback here a little bit to make the series 2-2 in game 4. I first got Nathan MacKinnon more than 0.5 goals. I think he's going to get one done here today. I also like Cale Makar more than 3.5 shots on goal. I think he's going to be really hammering the net today. I also got Mikko Rantanen more than 2.5 shots on goal too. I think the Avs are going to be trying to doing everything they can to get this series tied again. And I also have Chris Tanev more than 3.5 blocks. He has been a blocked machine in this series. I think he's going to continue to be as the Avs pile on the opportunities. Putting $10 down and actually going to go for a combo here. If we get 3 correct, we'll get 14. If we get 4 correct, we'll get 50. We'll see how it works out. We'll see how it happens. If you want to join me, go in the description, sign up to Sleeper, and use promo code GRAB. When you do, you'll get up to a $500 match. Highly recommend it, and it's a great time with all the playoffs starting here. And if you want to join Sleeper, it helps the channel out a ton as well. Thank you so much, and thank you to Sleeper for sponsoring today's video. But now let's talk about this 5th overall pick and the Montreal Canadiens, what they could end up doing on draft day. And to me, this is a fascinating one because over the past couple of years, it seems like they have drafted more for positional need rather than best player available. But right now, I think they're in a position where they could go for anyone. Even if they want to go for a defenseman, they could. Ken Hughes has mentioned before how they will go for best player available if they get the chance. And if that is a defenseman, then that's okay for Montreal. If it's the best player available for the Habs, they'll go for him. And that's what makes this draft so interesting for them, is that they could go for any single position and any player available as long as they're up at 5th overall. So today we're going to be going through the tiers of players I could see being in the race for the Montreal Canadiens. We have 3 different tiers here: outside chance, a decent chance, and realistic picks for the Montreal Canadiens. A bunch of players that I want to talk about here that could be Habs in the end. Now, starting out the outside chance tier, and unfortunately the least likely guy the Montreal Canadiens will draft will be the least likely guy available to them, and that is Macklin Celebrini. It would be incredible for the Habs to get this guy. He would be exactly what they could need, but unfortunately, he's going to get drafted first, and there's really no ifs and buts about it. Even if he somehow drops, he's not getting past number 2, and Chicago would take him immediately. That's for sure. But like we mentioned in the last mock draft, after 1st overall in Macklin Celebrini, the entire board is open, and anybody has the chance to be drafted. Coming in at number 3 in Bob McKenzie's rankings, also having an outside chance to even be available, is Artyom Levshunov, to me at least. There's a discussion over whether Chicago would take him or Demidov, but even if they don't take Levshunov at 2nd, to me, there's no way he gets past both Anaheim and Columbus. This is a player that I think both of those guys are going to absolutely adore. And even though I think he actually could be really interesting in Montreal's system, I just don't see him being available at number 5. The skating, the offensive potential, the aggressiveness physically, I just don't see a world where he will be available for the Habs at 5th overall. But if he is, he brings a lot to the game that the Habs defensive core in the future doesn't really have a lot of. And if he is available at number 5, I actually do think the Habs take him, but I just don't see that happen. Then we go on to Anton Silayev, who was 3rd in Bob McKenzie's rankings, but I think is an outside chance for different reasons. I actually think it's an okay chance that he's available for the Habs at 5th overall. I would say 50-50. I could see an opportunity where either Anaheim or Columbus ends up taking him, though I think most likely he is going to Utah at 6th overall. The reason I think he's an outside chance is that I think he's just very similar to what the Habs have drafted already. Plus, he's a left-handed D, plays on that left side, which is just not a need for this Habs team, especially when you consider what Guhle already brings. It's pretty similar, and I would say better than what Silayev could bring at the next level. To be with Silayev, he brings a lot of good physical play, is obviously humongous, and skates like the wind for his size. but I just don't think for Montreal he fills an innate need like a Levshunov could, or at least won't provide as much value there. Maybe they end up selecting him at 5th overall, but I still think with the player archetype, they have enough of what Silayev can do in the system already. Even though he's extremely tall, they already got a lot of physical play coming up. I think they'll be fine in that department. And out of the major crop of NHLD in this class, to me, Silayev is probably the one I'm the lowest on. So if they end up projecting him at 5th overall, I wouldn't be too mad about it. Now we move on to the decent chance tier. These are players that I think could really be interesting for Montreal at that 5th overall spot. Players that I could actually see them drafting at 5th overall and wouldn't be all too surprised to see. And starting us out with this tier, maybe the player least likely to be selected at 5th for Montreal is Konsta Helenius, but I still think he deserves to be at this spot for, again, what Montreal has prioritized. They prioritize a lot of smarts, especially over these last couple of years, and Konsta Helenius, that is his bread and butter. He is strong positionally, knows where to be, loves to feed his teammates, I think has a really good playmaking floor, but he's incredibly smart, always makes the right decisions, and although I don't really see a tremendous ceiling in him, I could absolutely see him being a great third line center, maybe an okay second line center if it's all able to pan out correctly. Maybe the Habs go for a lower ceiling type of guy 5th overall, but it would really give me shades of Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Another player I like as well in the decent tier, even though he is a left-handed D, and that is Sam Dickinson. Even though I think a player like Anton Silayev is a little bit unrealistic for Montreal because of the style of play, Sam Dickinson I think is the opposite because of the well-rounded game he has, I think at the next level, how good I think he could be in any one direction. Montreal could mold him in a bunch of different ways, and I think for Sam Dickinson as well, he just has a ton of potential to be a great two-way D. Even though there's a lot of issues I think with the decision-making, some of the consistency, you can see the physical pressure, you can see the skating, you can see the great first pass. There's a lot to build on there, and I think for the Habs, even though they wouldn't go for a lefty most likely, if they do, I think it will be Sam Dickinson. Now we go on to another left-handed D that I like quite a bit that I really hope is on Montreal's radar if they are going to take a left-handed D, and that is Zeev Buum. Now, I do think Dickinson might be a little bit more realistic, but I still wanted to include Zeev Buum in this tier because I think he's special. I think he just brings a lot of great offensive potential to the next level with the skating, with the confidence. Buum can be an absolute beast if you develop him right. And even though he's a left-handed D, he had played right side for Denver at points throughout the season as well, so he's somebody that could be versatile. If you want to put him on the right side in the future, he could absolutely do that. You could have a Hutson and Buum pair and just never let the other team have the puck. I mean, that would be absolutely insane. You can see what he's able to do with Denver, how good he was in the World Juniors for the U.S. Buum is absolutely him, and he's somebody that I would have in that top 5 tier. We'll see if Montreal sees it the same way, but they love Lane Hutson. Zeev Buum, to me, is an even better Lane Hutson. Now we go back onto the forward side here, and this is somebody that I think should be a strong consideration for Montreal, but I really don't see having a great chance to be drafted by them, and that is actually going to be Berkly Catton out of the Chiefs in the WHL. And here's the thing to me. Even though he has some weaknesses, and even though he isn't the greatest skater for a smaller center, this is somebody that has an incredible vision to the game, has a great offensive mind, a fantastic pass, and even though I don't think he was an absolute lights-out goal scorer on the next level like he is in the WHL, this is somebody that could score a few goals too. But I just love how he puts himself out there, the positioning he just is able to create for all of his teammates. He's just such a smart and such a great chemistry player that really just feeds everybody around him. But I just don't see Montreal taking him. I just feel like there might be some concerns with the skating, might be some concerns with the physical play, which are warranted. Catton is far from a perfect player, but I do think in terms of if you're looking at for top-end offense, especially if a player like Demidov and Lindstrom are gone, to me, Catton is probably the next best option. But I just see those questions about size and translatability maybe holding Montreal back, and we'll see if they're right in the end. Going on to a player that a lot of people throughout the last couple of years really have dreamed to have on the Montreal Canadiens, and even though his stock has lowered at different points throughout the season, next up I got Cole Eiserman, and I don't think we should doubt the Eiserman connection to Montreal. I don't think we should count that out by any means. To me, Eiserman is somebody that could be really interesting for Montreal in terms of that pure goal scoring. Also brings some good physical play too. I don't think you want to discredit that, and I think that's something Montreal could be looking for as maybe an asset in this year's pick as well. To me, I think a player like Eiserman could be really interesting, and even though I think he's not the play driver that Montreal necessarily needs, if you get him in the right position, if you get him with a player like Kirby Dach, to me that is a perfect situation for him. And who knows, maybe you just are able to put a lineup together of Caulfield, Suzuki, and Eiserman. It would be the complete non-play driving line, but hey, it'll score quite a few goals. Now going on to the defenseman that has been linked to Montreal the most, and it's actually Zayne of the Saginaw Spirit. A really interesting case here where he got 96 points in 66 OHL regular season games. The offensive potential is there. The power play quarterbacking, I think, could absolutely be there at the next level. Even though he has some issues with the defensive and physical play, it makes sense why the Habs go after him. This supreme offensive right defenseman, which I don't think they have the talent of Perek in their prospect pool, especially on that right side. Offensively, Perek could maybe fill that role, maybe be on a pair with Caden Gooley in the future. He would create a lot of interesting play for them and really solidify that defense as truly elite. Now we go on to the last player in the decent chance tier, and this is someone that I would love. I would absolutely adore to put in the realistic picks category, but I just don't see him being available. And unfortunately, that is Ivan Demidov. To me, what Demidov could be for Montreal would be special. An absolute play driver in every sense of the word. He's electrifying. He is all offense. He just puts it all out there, and his skill set is undeniably elite. In so many ways, Demidov could be an electrifying star, and somebody that Montreal, talent-wise, would blow their prospect pool out of the water. Unfortunately, I just don't see it happening. I still think Chicago is the favorite to select him, but even if Chicago doesn't, I don't think he gets past Columbus, especially with their Russian connections, with how many Russians they drafted and developed recently. To me, they'd also be a perfect situation for Demidov to go to, and even though I think he would be great in Montreal, he'd be exactly what that prospect pool needs, I just don't really see it happening, and unfortunately, I see him being picked before number 5. But now we go on into the realistic picks, players that could be available for the Habs, and players that I think the Habs will be looking for and looking to draft at 5th overall, and I only have 3 players in this selection, in this entire tier, so it's pretty exclusive. And starting us out in the realistic tier, I gotta go with Beckett Seneca. There has just been too much fuel in the fire for the Habs to not be at least really interested in what Seneca could be. And here's the thing, even though for a lot of people, at 5th overall, Seneca would be a massive surprise, I can see where the Montreal Canadiens are coming from. Just like Montreal, I'm assuming Seneca has been a player that I have loved watching in this second half for Oshawa. He's somebody that we talked about a lot in this channel, being somebody that grew a ton. He was like 5'9" or 5'10" or something before the season, had a major growth spurt, and you could tell at the start of the season. It was clunky, it was untraditional, he was just not really a consistent product. He wasn't a product at all. He was still developing his entire bulk. And now that he did, he was able to get comfortable in that second half and really show what he was made of. Using that size in a major way, he was great for Oshawa in the regular season and in the playoffs. In 16 games, his 10 goals, 12 assists for 22 points, an absolutely beastly playoff run. But he's using that great size to feed his skill, feed the opposition, and really get through defenses, get to the net. Seneca is using that size already in a major way and using it as a great asset. And it reminds me as well of how Slafkovsky was growing, how much he was able to use this body as well, and Seneca is right up that alley. He reminds me a little bit of actually Kirby Dach in his draft year, where it was this bigger player that had some inconsistencies, some great moments and some great flashes, but wasn't really putting it all together yet. But if Seneca does, if he is able to utilize all of his weapons, he could be a great top 6 piece and somebody that I could see maybe even reaching first line level. I do think it could be a reach at 5th overall, but again, with the growth plan and how much Montreal has developed growth in their prospects, Seneca is a guy that has already proven a lot of growth over the past year. At the next spot in the realistic picks for a different reason is actually Caden Lindstrom. And out of Demidov and Lindstrom, I think he's a lot more likely to be available at that 5th overall spot, though I do still think Columbus is the team that will end up selecting Lindstrom. If they don't, if they go maybe a different direction in Anton Silayev perhaps, then Lindstrom should be an automatic pick for this Habs roster. As a bigger center, he really checks all of the boxes. He doesn't rely on being a bigger center, even though he does bring a lot of physicality. He uses it in smart ways to shield the puck, get around opposition, forecheck well, get around the boards. He also is an incredible skater, has a great frontline speed for somebody that big, and has great agility as well. He's somebody that is incredibly skilled, can pull off moves that anybody can do in this class, has so much talent on his stick. Even though I think there is kind of some bull in a china shop type of aggression there that sometimes leads to some inopportune plays and there's some inconsistency in his decision making, this is somebody that, although is raw, just has so much to offer at the next level. If he's able to unlock that potential, I think could become the Montreal Canadiens' best player, and that's pretty enticing. And even though the point totals don't pop out at you, again, I want you to remember just how raw this guy is, how much there is still able to unlock, and just like Slafkovsky, a bigger player that I think has a lot of runway, Lindstrom checks that box. But maybe the most realistic player for the Montreal Canadiens to pick at 5th overall in terms of what they prioritize, what they value, and also just who will be available at 5th overall, to me, the most realistic option has to be Tej Iginla. We talked about him a ton over the past couple of months, talked about him a lot as well for the Montreal Canadiens and their first round pick, but it just makes so much sense for Iginla to be a Hab at 5th overall. He's not too much of a reach, but also checks a lot of the boxes they're looking for. A fantastic character in every single way, a leader through and through, also incredibly driven, and you can see that in the game that he plays. He's an incredible forechecker, brings intensity in every single shift. He has a great shot, good solid play along the nets, and is going to be somebody that I think will be a beast in the playoffs someday at the NHL level. Also, has learned a lot over the past year, has gotten so much better over the last year, and is one of the younger players in this draft, being an August birthday, still 17 years old. As a power forward in the future, as a top 6 winger for basically anybody on that team, Iginla brings a lot of diversity and a lot of just consistency to the game. You know what you're getting in Tej Iginla, and I think for Montreal, that will be pretty appetizing as well. Somebody that won't bring these insane point totals, but will get the job done when it matters most. Now, we're not done quite yet. Even though we went through all the realistic picks, all the players that Montreal could be looking at, I also wanted to share my top 5 players that Montreal should target at 5th overall, in my personal opinion. How I read these prospects and how good they could be for the Habs in the future. I'm going to exclude Macklin Celebrini because that would be too obvious. Obviously, if he's available at number 5, he'd be the best option there. But here is my top 5. I got Catton Lindstrom at number 1. I got Ivan Demidov at number 2. I got Artyom Levshunov at number 3. To me, if he's available, he could be really interesting on that defense. Even if they draft a lot of defensemen, the potential in Levshunov is just too good to pass up. Berkly Catton number 4 and Tej Iginla at number 5. To me, these would be the best options for Montreal. I still think Lindstrom checks the most boxes for what they need and what they could use in that forward group. A big time forward who brings a lot of physicality and so much skill there. But any option in this top 5, I think for Montreal could be solid. There could be really interesting options. To me, I think Iginla is the most likely, but we'll see what the Montreal Canadiens do on draft day. They are never predictable, and that's what we love most about them. But I want to know in the comments down below, what do you guys think of this Habs team? What do you think they will draft at the 5th overall position? Also, I'd love to know who you think they could target as well with their first rounder later in the first. Of course, that pick is going to be really interesting as well. They had 2 first-round picks in 2022, getting Slavkovsky and Mashar, so we'll see what they end up doing this time around. A lot of different options there, but I would love to know your thoughts down below on who they draft, who you think they should draft as well, and all of the tiers, if you agree and disagree with them as well. All your thoughts down below, would love to know them. And of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already, and share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online, all the Habs fans you guys know online, and click on this card for all the 2024 draft content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great hockey day, and goodbye.